Japanese colonial rule and World War II, Korea struggle and America's role from 1910 to 1945. The Korean Peninsula endured 35 years of Japanese colonial rule, a period marked by political repression, cultural erasure, economic exploitation, and rising resistance. While the United States did not maintain direct involvement in Korea during this time, the groundwork for future American engagement was quietly laid through Korean independence movements, diaspora activism, and shifting global power dynamics during World War II. The beginning of colonial rule. 1910 annexation. The Japan-Korea Annexation Treaty of 1910 marked the formal beginning of colonial rule. Despite being signed under coercion and never properly ratified by the Korean people, Japan took full control of Korea's governance, land, education, and economy. Key features of this colonial period included suppression of Korean language and culture, forced labor and land appropriation, imposition of Japanese legal and educational systems, political repression through military police and secret surveillance. Though Koreans were made Japanese subjects, they were denied full rights and remained second-class citizens in their own homeland. U.S. policy, strategic distance. Throughout this era, the United States maintained limited direct engagement with Korea. After the 1882 Shufelt Treaty, U.S. influence gradually waned, especially as Japan emerged as the dominant power in East Asia following its victory in the Russo-Japanese War 1905. In fact, in the Taft-Katsura Agreement 1905, an unofficial memorandum between U.S. Secretary of War William Howard Taft and Japanese Prime Minister Katsura Taratha, U.S. implicitly recognized Japan's interests in Korea while Japan accepted American interests in the Philippines. Though not a formal treaty, this understanding signaled U.S. acquiescence to Japanese colonial ambitions in Korea. Korean resistance and independence activism. Despite the repressive conditions, Korean resistance never ceased. Independence movements grew both domestically and abroad. 1. March 1st Movement 1919, sparked by President Woodrow Wilson's 14 points and its emphasis on self-determination. Korean intellectuals and students organized a massive peaceful protest on March 1st. 1919, though brutally suppressed by Japanese forces, the movement galvanized global awareness of Korea's plight. To Provisional Government of the Republic of Korea in exile. Korean leaders established the Provisional Government in Shanghai 1919, with figures like Syngman Rhee lobbying the U.S. government and League of Nations for recognition of Korean sovereignty. While the U.S. never officially supported the Provisional Government, its existence helped sustain the idea of a free and independent Korea and created early diplomatic ties between Korean nationalists and American officials. 3. Korean Americans and diaspora activism. Korean immigrants in Hawaii, California, and China played a vital role in supporting independence efforts. Korean churches, newspapers, and political organizations in the U.S. raised funds, disseminated news, and lobbied U.S. politicians. Syngman Rhee, who later became South Korea's first president, was among the most prominent Korean activists in the U.S. He studied at Harvard and Princeton, and later led diplomatic missions seeking U.S. support for Korean independence. World War II, a turning point. Japan's entry into World War II following the attack on Pearl Harbor 1941 dramatically altered the political landscape. The U.S. now saw Japan not as a regional competitor but as a primary enemy. This shift reopened the Korean question. Allied planning for post-war Asia. During the war, Korean independence remained a secondary issue for the Allied powers, but it was not forgotten. Discussions at major wartime conferences shaped Korea's future. Cairo Conference 1943. The US, UK, and China issued a statement declaring that in due course, Korea shall become free and independent. Yalta Conference 1945. Korea was discussed in the context of post-war occupation with the idea of a temporary trusteeship by Allied powers. While these statements acknowledged Korean aspirations, the phrase in due course was deliberately vague, reflecting the uncertainty about how and when Korea would gain full independence. Liberation and division. On August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered, ending World War II and, with it, Japanese colonial rule in Korea. However, freedom did not come as a unified national victory. Instead, Korea was abruptly divided at the 38th parallel, with Soviet forces occupying the north and American forces the south. What was intended as a temporary military arrangement quickly hardened into ideological division, setting the stage for the Cold War on the Korean Peninsula. Legacy of colonial rule. Japanese colonial rule left deep scars that still shape Korean society. politics, and identity, loss of sovereignty and cultural trauma. Economic disruptions followed by intense modernization under colonial constraints. Political radicalization, with many resistance fighters later forming the core leadership of North and South Korea. And while U.S. policy during the colonial era was passive, the end of World War II marked the beginning of active American involvement in Korea, one that would deepen during the Korean War 1950 to 1953, and evolve into a long-standing military and political alliance. Final thoughts. The period of Japanese colonial rule and World War II was a time of suffering and resistance for Korea, but also one of transformation. Korean nationalists, often overlooked in Western narratives, tirelessly worked to preserve identity, seek justice, and appeal to the world's conscience. Though U.S. support during the colonial period was limited, Korean activists planted seeds of a future alliance. Those seeds would grow rapidly in the aftermath of the war, leading to a complex, enduring relationship between Korea and the United States, one rooted in shared values of sovereignty, democracy, and resilience.